Good morning. Good morning. This is Dr. Yonnette. I am happy to be with you again this morning. Let's talk a little bit. Let's talk a little bit. Today, I want to talk about reflections on my growing up. And like I said before, I grew up in Guyana, South America. My country is the only country in South America that speaks only English. So I'm next to Suriname and Brazil and Venezuela. Okay, so you get a little idea of where my country is located geographically. So this morning I wanted to talk a little bit about five things I remember from my childhood that are funny and that, bring back certain emotions, mixed emotions. That's what I want to share with you this morning as I do my regimen. And the first one I want to share was my experience with a bike. I remember growing up my sister's ride. My eldest sister Hazel, she was like an awesome rider on a bike, and it's funny that we never really got her into competition, but she was a bike rider. And I remember having the bike in the yard, leaned up against a post, one of the posts that held up the house actually. And my dad also, by the way, my dad also was a bike rider. He rode all kinds of places. He rode to work, as a matter of fact. It got him through the traffic as quickly as he could. And he was a rider as well. So a lot of people in Guyana ride because we have also the Chinese influence in Guyana. Chinese, as you know, do a lot of riding on bikes, bike riding. Okay, so this bike was leaning up against a post downstairs in the yard, and I so badly wanted to ride a bike. I was there, I was touching it, I was getting close to it, and my dad said, "Leave the bike alone." I think maybe I was like 5'6", and this was an adult bike, but I still kept touching and tugging and holding on to the handles and pulling on the brakes. And the next thing you know, the bike toppled over and fell on me. Not completely, but it fell on me. It hit me and it hurt me. It was painful. And I was there pretending that I wasn't in pain because, mind you, I was disobedient. I was there pretending that I wasn't in pain. And then, the tears just started rolling down my cheeks. And my sister said to me, ha ha, ha ha, we are as children growing up. She said, ha ha, look at you. You didn't listen. Now you're crying. And I'm like, I'm not crying. I'm not crying. And then I bursted out in tears. And that experience stuck with me forever. Now, let's talk about your experiences. Have you had an experience in childhood that you can reflect on that kind of bring back funny and mixed emotions to you? Share your experience with me. Now, another experience I had was when I was in elementary school. Now, in elementary school, and I perhaps shared this experience with you before, but it was so vivid for me, that I kind of want to share it with you again. So that experience in elementary school, I went to school a day and it had been raining. It had been raining for a while, so there was like mud in the yard, the schoolyard. And I don't know, we probably went out for recess that day. And while at recess, I fell in the mud. My lily white socks and shoes got all muddied up. And as a little girl, I think I was in maybe kindergarten or first grade, I started crying. And I'm like, ooh, am I a crybaby? I started crying though, and I was crying and upset that my shoes and socks were messy. And I had this friend, my best friend, her name was Junan Gentle. And Junan, are you out there? Hook me up, connect with me. I'd love to meet you again and see what you are like as an adult. And Junan Gentle came and she stood with me and she started crying with me. Do you have a friend like that? Yes, she started crying with me. And because I was crying, she was crying. That's what friends do, right? And she then turned to me and said, "Are you going to cry this afternoon? Are you going to cry in the afternoon?" And I'm like, how would I know if I'm going to cry in the afternoon? But I told her, no, I'm not going to be crying anymore. But I had that tremendous experience that stuck with me over the years. My best friend, June and Gentle, she cried with me when I cried. And then the next experience was this experience that we had. We as kids looked forward to going and visiting with our grandmother. Our grandmother lived in Georgetown, and my dad would take us to visit with her from time to time. And it was, I can remember it was like a Christmas time. It was Christmas time, and we were going to visit with Granny. We call him Granny, the British, you say Granny or grandmother. We were going to visit with Granny, and we got ready, we got dressed. I put on my socks and shoes, and they were all of us children were waiting to get out and go visit with her. And why were we waiting? Because it was raining. Daddy was ready, and we were sitting and waiting for the rain to stop. And while we were waiting there, the time was going as we were waiting. And eventually it got to a point where it got to be very, very late in the afternoon. And my dad noticed that the rain just kept coming. Back in my country, they have what you call the monsoon rains. And the rain just kept coming and coming and coming. And daddy broke out into a song that said, "We can't go no more." And as he broke out into that song, I broke out into crying because I was so disappointed. I was so disappointed that I could not go to visit with my grandmother. So that's experience number three. I think I said I was going to share five experiences. Here, listen to this one. Were you as a kid very, very excited to go visit the zoo? Well, I was. And one day my family went to the zoo. And we in Guyana, there are like so many monkeys in Guyana. I remember even from going to camp, when we went to camp as kids, one of the kids found a monkey, and he took that monkey into his cabin, and he and the monkey were pals. And he even took the monkey back home after we left camp. We would go camping in Goshen in an undeveloped area where no, very, very few people lived. So, anyways, we went to the zoo, and we were there trying to visit with the monkeys and feeding the monkeys. We were giving the monkeys peanuts. And there was a big sign out there on the cage that said, "Do not feed the monkeys." But you know how you are as children and as visitors, you want to get close and you want to interact. So we were giving the monkeys nuts. And as I tried to give the monkey some nuts in my hand, the monkey's hand went straight to my face and smacked me. And his nail scratched me as well. And what do you expect? I burst into tears. I started crying. And that was like another experience that lived with me throughout my years, even now that I'm an adult. And then the final experience I'm sharing with you this morning is the experience I had when we were kids. My cousins were from Suriname, the Hendersons. And I remember Sarah Henderson and I were in the same class. And she came to me, "Sarah, are you out there? If you're hearing me, hit me up. I'd love to connect with you again." Yeah, so Sarah came to me, but Sarah and Esther, they came to me at the end. They said it was in the afternoon after our morning classes, and they said, "Let's go to Sophia." Now, Sophia was the place where they had these big experiments, huge experiments of products and all kinds of activities from throughout Guyana. And they said, "Let's go." And we got on the bus and we went. Now, we had no permission to go. My parents didn't give us permission, but it was Robin and I, Robin and me, and then there was Esther and Sarah. And we went on that bus and we got to Sophia and we were like walking through all the exhibits, and it was so much fun. But next thing you know, the program was finished and it was time to go home. And we had no way of getting back home. We had no money. We had no idea how far we were from our home. We were in Georgetown or Sophia, not quite Georgetown, but we were getting back to Pleasance, where I grew up. And we were there walking around trying to ask people. Eventually, we found somebody who gave us a ride back. And I tell you the truth, up to today, I don't remember who that person was. I don't remember. I think it was a taxi, but I don't remember who the person was. I don't remember how we paid him, but we got back home. And those memories still stick with me, as an adult. I sometimes process, and maybe I need to process it even more, that, the experience of being lost, because we were really lost in Sophia and not knowing how to get back home. But hey, I'm sharing with you my experiences that give, you know, mixed emotions as I was growing up. What have you experienced? Share it us, hit me up, share it us your experiences as a child. Be they funny, be they really emotionally draining, be they experiences that you can't shake. Share it us. This is Dr. Yonnette. Thank you for joining me this morning. It was a pleasure having you, and have a fantastic day.